Um, usually I hear arguments made by Christians and atheists against the Prophet Muhammad's marriage with Aisha. Now, the whole situation is that the Prophet Muhammad's example is marrying a young woman who was mentally and physically fit for marriage. Back then, girls matured mentally and physically early at the age of 6, at the age of 9, etc., etc. So in Islam, you're allowed to marry a young woman who's mentally and physically fit for marriage. Now we know 6-year-olds and 9-year-olds are not mentally and physically fit for marriage. So that's the whole example of it. Society has changed. Back then, a 14-year-old boy would be ready to go to war. Now we know 14-year-olds are not ready to go to war because they're not mentally and physically fit, etc. So basically, that's the whole issue of the Prophet Muhammad's marriage with Aisha, etc. Is society has changed. Back then, girls were married off at a younger age because they were mentally and physically fit at that age. But now we know society has changed and girls are not mentally and physically fit for marriage at a young age. Same thing with boys. Boys aren't mentally and physically fit to fight in war at 13, 14, 11, 12, etc. So basically, who in Islam, if a girl is mentally and physically fit for marriage, then she's married at that time. We know girls now are mentally and physically fit at the age of, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 for marriage. And we know boys are mentally and physically fit for war when they're 21, 22, 23, etc., etc. So that's the whole issue is mental and physical fitness, at that time, so that's the whole, that answers the whole polemic. But I don't want to get into that much here. I just want to point out the inconsistency of Christians and atheists who bring up this view. If we read Numbers chapter 31, verses 17 to 18, it says, Yahweh and Moses allowed the rape of little girls and minor girls. These girls would have been younger than 6 and 9. They would have been in the age of 3 to 9 years old, or maybe 3 to 12 years old, etc. It says in Numbers chapter 31, verses 17 to 18, Moses and Yahweh allowed the rape of little girls and minors. And now before you say, well, that's the Old Covenant, that's the Old Testament, etc., you Christians can't argue that, because according to 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16, it says the Old Testament is God-breathed and useful for teaching and training in morality. So you can't get rid of the Old Testament. Again, in Numbers chapter 31, verses 17 to 18, Yahweh allows the rape of little girls and minors. There's no way around this. If you're a Jew or a Christian who's pointing the finger at Islam or the Prophet Muhammad, as an atheist, you don't have an objective standard to judge something moral or immoral. So you have no objective standard for morality. The atheist cannot justify morality because atheists don't have any kind of standard for morality. It's just like, let's say there's one atheist murderer and one atheist non-murderer. They only have subjective opinions on why murder or non-murder is right or wrong. They have no objective standard. They just have subjective standard. In other words, they can't justify morality. They can just offer subjective opinions. That's why atheists have no objective standard for morality. But the point of this video is that Jews, Christians, and atheists and agnostics, let's throw agnostics in there too, are inconsistent when they point the finger at the Prophet Muhammad's marriage with Aisha or any other moral issue with Islam, especially atheists, because the atheists can't say something's moral or immoral because they have no standard for morality. So the atheist is inconsistent when they criticize anything in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, or the Bible, or the Quran. So I hope this points out the inconsistency of the critics of Islam who point the finger at the Prophet Muhammad. Before you do, look at your own standard and look at your own Bible and look at your own atheistic view and understand that you're being inconsistent here. So you have no argument here.